So I've been having some fun with the 16-inch M4 Pro MacBook Pro. I seriously had some problems believing how powerful it really is, especially in Logic Pro and Ableton Live. When I compare it with the M3 Max MacBook Pro I had earlier, the performance is significantly higher actually on the M4 Pro non-Max. So Apple has done something here to get more power out from a single CPU core, obviously going from the M3 to M4. And I can notice it when I use Ableton Live as well, more quick and snappy, and even when I have it connected to this big ultra wide, it works just flawlessly. So let's take a look at some raw numbers, but before we do that I want to talk about the template I'm running here. So this template is a DAW Overload template. It consists of one Serum synthesizer and one Diva synthesizer and some MIDI notes. And I am just duplicating the tracks until I hear audible crackle or I get a system overload message. The buffer is set at 512 and the sample rate is set at 48 kHz. These are settings I have used in the past, and for the comparison to be fair, I need to keep using the same settings when I test it today. I know some of you want me to max out the buffer to 1024 or even higher than that, just to test the CPU, but the results would not be consistent. It would not be fair to the comparison of the stuff I have done before. Also, I don't have the other Macs anymore, so I can't really update the project because, I mean, I have to sell them to be able to afford new ones. At least now. For now. But first of all, here we have some results from Ableton, and I'm using my DAW Overload project here where I compare it to other Macs. So the result says the M4 Pro is able to run 180 tracks. The M3 Max was able to run 143 tracks. M3 MacBook Air 54 tracks. M1 MacBook Pro 16 gig 2020 model 47 tracks, and the M1 MacBook Air 8 gig 46 tracks. If we take a look at lower buffer sizes, like for example 32, it seems like the difference is less noticeable actually, at least in Ableton Live, where the M3 Max and the M3 Pro more or less get the same results of around 90 tracks actually. So you can clearly see that the performance jump you get with the M4 Pro 14 core, but when we look at lower buffer sizes, the difference is actually not that high in Ableton at least. Logic Pro, so I'm using my DAW Overload template here. I have set the max threads manually in the settings, and we are using medium process buffer range. And the results here is a little bit better. I'm able to run 205 tracks. The M3 Max was able to run 145. M3 MacBook Air was able to run 55 tracks, and the M1 MacBook Pro was able to run 54. If we set the buffer size to 32 in Logic, it actually seems that it performs much better compared to Ableton, and I can't really say why that is. I'm not an engineer, but Logic might be adjusting the buffer on the back end there, or prioritize it differently compared to what Ableton does. So the M4 Pro gets 220 tracks in 32 buffer size, M3 Max 152, M3 MacBook Air 58, and the M1 MacBook Pro 26 tracks. And again, you can clearly see that you get a quite a good performance jump going from the M3 Max, for example, to the M4 Pro. So is the M4 MacBook Pro good for music production? Well, the point of this video is not really to show you if the M4 Pro is good for music production. A big shocker. The point is to show you the difference between different Mac systems. And that is why I have this DAW Overload template I'm running, which you can download and try for yourself. The links are in the description below there. Obviously, you can produce music with the M4 Pro. I mean, it's really powerful. But if you want to know how the entry-level Macs work in music production, for example, you have to watch some of my other videos where I talk about that, and they should pop up here at the top somewhere. In terms of sweet spot in M4 Pro, for example, MacBook Pro for music production, I think that the 12-core one, the 14-inch, is a nice price point for performance to price ratio. However, you can't get that one with the 16-inch as far as I know, so, but it's up to you. I think you will get far with any M4 Pro CPU you get actually. So I'm running the latest version of Cubase 14, and the interesting thing with Cubase is that it can utilize the efficiency cores on a Mac as well. Logic, Ableton and some other DAWs at least currently only uses the performance cores of a Mac, not the efficiency cores. I asked Steinberg about this and they say that they have significantly optimized their DAW for CPU architecture like this from Apple. The only setting I did in Cubase was go into the ASIO guard level and set it to high, and again the buffer size here is 512 as the other DAWs, and I'm using the same template with the same synths and same notes. So you can see that Cubase here we are able to run 254 tracks with the same DAW Overload template, while Logic runs 220 tracks and Ableton runs 205 tracks. So you can clearly see that if you want the best possible CPU performance on a Mac, Cubase is a DAW that can live with that because it utilizes efficiency cores, and you will also get more or less the same results if you want to use Reaper, which is a cheaper DAW, since also Reaper uses efficiency cores. So this makes it a little bit interesting if you can, for example, if you want to, I don't know, budget and Apple doesn't really go well together, but if you want to buy the entry-level Mac Mini for music production, you could perhaps buy that one and go for Reaper, and you have a pretty cool and cheap-ish music studio. If you're a user of Reaper or if you're a user of Cubase, the new M4 Mac Mini would be pretty cool because it has 6 efficiency cores and it has 4 performance cores. And I mean, those DAWs would be able to utilize all of those cores. But I mean, if you want to use Ableton or if you want to use Logic and buy a Mac Mini, I would probably go for the M4 Pro with more performance cores. So the question is there, why doesn't Ableton or why doesn't Logic use efficiency cores of the Mac? Why do they keep them hanging around there? Well, the only one who can really answer this is Apple, which makes Logic, and I guess they have a good reason for doing so, and Ableton. I mean, they have good reasons for doing it this way, because Ableton Live, just think a little bit about where you use this kind of software. It's often used in live settings, using live sets, and you might want it to run critical real-time audio on the performance cores. And in Logic it might be the same, but again, this is only speculation from my part and it shouldn't really be taken as definitive facts, but now you know at least. So during these tests I did record the fan RPM and the temperatures of the CPU, and I can say that I never heard the fan turn on the Mac. And even when I did run the test in Cubase, which pushed the temperatures up a little bit higher, the noise was more or less silent. So here are some metrics when I was running the DAW Overload template on Ableton and Logic Pro. As you can see, the temperature stays within green and the fans are barely spinning. The temperature briefly touches 90 degrees and you can see it kind of follows when the notes are being pressed. Pretty cool to see actually. When running it with Cubase, we can see that after a while the temps go up a little bit more, but the fans stay the same and still just silence from the computer in this case. So I have a PC here. I like to play some games, so you need a PC even depending on what Apple says that their Macs are gaming PCs. Yeah, I don't know. So is the M4 Pro MacBook Pro faster than this AMD 7950X desktop PC in my DAW Overload project? Well, it is not, but the PC can play around 273 tracks of this Overload template. But still, the M4 Pro can play around 210 tracks in Logic and Ableton and 254 in Cubase. So it's really close, and I'm considering how much less power the M4 Pro uses compared to a desktop PC like this. I think it's still very impressive, and it would be interesting to see how the M4 Max stacks up with this, but it's out of reach at budget-wise, maybe some other time. And as a side note, I can actually hear the CPU fan going in my PC when I pushed it in this project, but on the Mac the fan was more or less completely silent, so there's that difference as well. And I have the Noctua NHD15 CPU cooler in this PC, which is considered silent, but it was not. Remember that these tests I run is only kind of to give you an overall sense over how these machines stack up against each other. Although I produce music and I have releases out there with hundreds of thousands of streams, I don't really consider myself a real professional music producer or mixing engineer or something like that. I have a computer here, I do certain things on it, I record it on the camera, I'm talking to you, and you can kind of see through my eyes what is happening here, and you have to make your own decision on if you think this is BS or if this is something you can use. My personal opinion is that the current Mac lineup is actually very strong. I think that the M4 Pro is a really good choice, and especially the 14-core one, or you can go for the 12-core M4 Pro if the 14-inch MacBook Pro is enough for you. You can actually not get it in the 16-inch. This laptop here is honestly a real desktop replacement for me. If it wasn't for gaming and the fact that I actually like building PCs, I wouldn't need a PC anymore. It could basically do everything. Just a side note, editing videos for 4K just fluid like butter, but that's another video. In the future, I would probably like my setup to be an M4 based Mac Studio. I would try that out, and perhaps an M4 or M3 based MacBook Air when I am on the go. But so far the M4 Pro 14-core 16-inch MacBook Pro is more than enough for me. So this video is getting long enough, and it's not the only video I have about the M4 Pro MacBook Pro. Depending on when you watch this video, you can find some other videos where I do some real production on the M4 Pro and some other videos about it. So check it out. Check them out on my channel, and yeah, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.